Hey guys, it's Sam, and it's the month of October, which if you are an illustrator anywhere online, you know what that means. It means Inktober is upon us, for better or worse. And for those of you who don't know, Inktober is a challenge that happens every year in the month of October, where you take a day's prompt with whatever your art medium is and create a piece of artwork for that prompt. It's something that has been going on for years, and it's fairly popular on the internet. And this video is not an Inktober bash fest. It's everything but. It's actually about why I, as a manga creator, choose not to participate in Inktober, and just my general thoughts about Inktober as a whole in our community. So if you can't tell, this video is not scripted. So let's get right into it. Why I think Inktober is not for me. First, I think Inktober kind of instills something that's already a difficulty for a lot of us artists on the internet, which is the pressure of daily output. So the whole premise of Inktober is that every day you take that prompt and you create a new piece of artwork for it. And as you can imagine, this is, you're producing over 25 pieces of art, for a month and putting all of that out online. So it brings up to me this age-old dilemma, this age-old question of quality versus quantity. So obviously, most people get into Inktober because it's a way for you to kind of get visibility. But in order to get that visibility, you have to actually participate in the challenge. You have to do it the way that it's intended to be done, which implies and means that you're making weeks worth of artwork and putting that out every single day. For me, what I think about this idea that art is kind of treated like a piece of content and that you have to keep putting out new pieces, I think Inktober kind of instills this, and I think that this kind of mindset is the number one reason why a lot of artists get burnt out. We a lot of times feel like we can't reuse art that we've already made. If it's drawn and you've posted it, that one's gone. You can't use it anymore. And Inktober to me kind of like subtly instills this, because every day you need to draw something new for this challenge and you put out so much. And then the flip side of this, still thinking about that quantity versus quality debate, is that how can I ensure that the artwork that I'm creating for Inktober is good enough quality so that I get some return when I actually post it on social media? I don't know about you, but for me, I can sketch very quickly, but that doesn't mean that sketch is going to be so good that I can ensure I get some, level of visibility on social media. So it really kind of like drives home this idea of daily creation pressure that we have as artists in a social media world, and this kind of leads into burnout. Using the prompts, on first glance, you may think, oh, that's so helpful. Like, I don't have to think about what to draw. But the thing is, it's actually restrictive because you're given the prompt and you must think of something to draw relating to that prompt. So while it's a great challenge, it's a great exercise for like creating and drawing, you may kind of get burnt out and you may pull out all the ideas that you have in your head, and you may find yourself at some stage during the month of October saying, wow, I have absolutely nothing for the prompt of spatula or whatever the prompt may be. And, you do feel that pressure to sit there and actually have to produce something, in order to keep up with the challenge, because it is a challenge. Lastly, just on the idea of the pressure of daily creation, is that, some of us also balance other things on top of, drawing. And for some people, that's a regular work-life balance with a job, and doing the daily challenges when you've got so many other things to balance can be quite hard. For me, I work on a manga full-time. I work on my manga, Olde Treehouse, full-time. So there's literally no way on this blue-green planet that I can draw an illustration every day on top of working on my manga. So, overall, I kind of feel like Inktober drives home these pressures of daily content creation that, makes it something. It almost adds a layer of anxiety for me when it comes to the idea of like, should I do it this year? The next reason why I choose not to participate is something that I feel like has developed over the years in the art community when it comes to Inktober, and that's kind of like the quote-unquote algorithm game. And so Inktober in some ways has kind of become more about social media visibility than art. And I don't say this as a negative to everyone who participates. Like, it's inevitable, social media is how we get our art in front of people. So it's kind of like, well, of course it's going to become about the social media. But I think what I mean more so is that you create your art for Inktober hoping that, okay, like I'm going to post these and one of these is going to catch on. One of these is going to go viral. One of these is going to get my work seen by a larger audience because I'm using the hashtags, I'm participating in a trend. And if you're an artist, you know that those are the things we're told to do in order to grow on social media, right? Participate in trends and things like that. So a lot of the original premise, from what I understand, of Inktober is kind of lost in that. Originally the premise of the creator, I believe he started it to kind of practice his line work and, practice art techniques. And it's kind of morphed from a way to practice art to draw an illustration every day and try to get as many eyes on it as possible and hope that something you draw goes viral. And that's kind of like, that connects to the idea that artists these days are just kind of like a slave to the algorithm, right on down to like needing to post at like the most optimal times. And another thing is that there are large artists that participate in Inktober, and then there are a lot of smaller artists that participate in it as well. I consider myself a small artist. I do have a pretty decently sized YouTube channel. Thank you all. We just hit 3,000. We just hit 3,000 subs. I'm so happy. But I still consider myself relatively small compared to like a lot of other artists on YouTube, on Twitter, on Instagram. And one of the things that has always kind of bothered me about Inktober is that just because you have a smaller account doesn't mean you put less effort towards the art that you're making for the challenge. But the effort you put does not correlate to the return. So what I mean by that is like, you can draw an awesome picture and use the hashtags and use the prompt and everything and then post it on social media and get completely overshadowed by a much larger account. And, while this is like, that's the nature of the game, it's the nature of social media, and you kind of can't do anything about that, it kind of leads to this feeling of disappointment, of low engagement, despite how hard you may have worked on your piece. And because, I feel like as artists, we're constantly every day fighting our brains, we're fighting our brains and saying this is worthwhile, being an artist is a worthwhile endeavor and, it's going to amount to something. I feel like repeatedly getting, so beat down, if you will, by the lack of engagement on work that you worked hard on can be really discouraging in the long run. And that leads me into the mental health considerations of Inktober. One of the, what I think is the most difficult parts of being a writer, an artist, or storyteller on social media is that inevitably you will compare yourself to your peers, you will compare yourself to other people in your niche. And there is a time and a place where that comparison is extremely important. It helps you get better. It helps you center yourself. It helps you see where you stand. And I think that level of comparison can be very healthy. But I noticed that, for me, sometimes it leads to more negative consequences. It leads to anxiety with posting. And it kind of lends into this idea of performing publicly, like the pressure to make sure that everything you do is finished and ready for public consumption on social media. Now, I say this all to say that, Inktober doesn't explicitly say you have to post like the most polished and finished, where you can do whatever works for you. But I think the way that everyone kind of tends to be is that people are posting really high quality, nice work during Inktober. And so you feel like, I gotta do that too. And to me, this is where it kind of creates this really negative, almost like this negative feeling of comparing where you are, your day 20 to someone else's day, 900, you know what I mean? And while you can use Inktober as sort of like a personal barometer for how far you've come and to track your progress, we all know that we kind of all fall into the pressure of that social media thing. And it could really create a lot of anxiety around posting your work publicly. So those are kind of like all the general reasons why I don't participate in Inktober. But I kind of wanted to talk a little bit more about the specific reasons why I, as a manga creator, don't participate in Inktober. And if you're also making a manga, you probably know where I'm going with this. The first thing that I will say is that I find it near to impossible to do anything art-wise that is not related to making my manga. So for those of you that don't know, I'm working on a fantasy adventure manga called Olde Treehouse, and I currently just published chapter 6, and I'm working on chapter 7 now. And I got started, I would say, the first-ish of May. I published at the very tail end of April, but you could consider me publishing for the first time in May. And this project takes every single ounce of my time as a manga creator. The difference between being a manga creator and an illustrator is that we don't just have the art part, we also have the story writing part. So we have script writing, screenwriting, we have storyboards, and then we have inks. And, we have to do all of this extra stuff on top of just the drawing part. So I don't really see how Inktober fits in with that. Now, someone might say, well, hey, Sam, you can do 4 komas. You can do 4-panel comics, and, that could work too. But even a 4-panel comic needs a narrative. Even a 4-panel comic needs, a story to go with it. So it's like an extra layer of effort on top of the drawing aspect, which makes it just really a lot of work, to be quite honest with you. And just so the nature of the idea, for me personally, it doesn't fit with making manga. Now, with that being said, Art Crumbs, which if you're at all in the manga community, you know of Art Crumbs, they came up with this absolutely exceptional idea where rather than drawing a new piece of art for every day of the prompt for Inktober, you post a storyboard or a sketch of one of your pages, and then you post the final page. And the reason why I think this is such a great idea and why I love this idea is because, related to what I said earlier about once you draw something and you publish it, it's gone. You can't repost it. This is a way that we can get multiple uses out of one piece of artwork that we've made. So we don't feel like, oh my goodness, everything has to be fresh and new, and I can't get the most out of a piece of art that I've made. So I really like this approach, and I really like this idea. And I encourage, if you're a manga creator who does want to participate in Inktober, that you do this challenge that Art Crumbs created, because I really think this is the best way for manga creators to be able to participate without feeling that extra level of pressure to come up with brand new stuff every day. And lastly, I wanted to just say something that was a little bit more, I guess, a little sappy, a little motivational opinion. And this is predominantly directed towards other folks who are making webtoons or manga or comics, who feel like they want to participate in things like Inktober, but they just don't have the time or don't feel confident. Like I said, making a comic is just so intensely challenging already. We have so many things to be concerned with. We have a narrative. We have, like I said, screenwriting, script writing. There are so many aspects to comic making that takes so much practice and time and effort. And you may see, you may not be sure where you fit. Which community do I fit into? Am I a writer? Am I an artist? And so as a result, you may feel unsure about whether or not to participate in things like Inktober, or, whether it's worth your while, or you just may not have time like me. And the one thing that I will say to that is find ways that you can take the process of making your comic and how you can use that as, dare I say, content. Dare I say that? How you can use that as content that you can share with, new fans, old fans, and people who just want to see your work. Every step of the process, from the writing right on down to the final ink in comic making, is part of that creative process. It's part of the art of making a comic. And you have every right to share that, regardless of whether or not it's perfect, regardless of whether or not your line work is amazing. I have my Achilles heel is my line work. I'm working on that, and I want to get better at it, but I'm not going to let my perceived limitations with that stop me from sharing what I have. So if you do want to participate in Inktober, maybe approach it from this mentality that, it doesn't have to be a perfect finished piece. I'm going to put what I created at the time that I made it. And that's what's good for me. So with that being said, it's okay to choose what works for you. It's okay to do, and participate in the challenges that work for you. I think the most important thing is to reflect on your own creative practices, and whether you're an illustrator or a comic author, think about how your approach to your art is something and how you can share that approach with others, whether it's by participating in a daily trend or finding some other ways to share what you work on. And also, most importantly, not participating in Inktober does not make you less of an artist. It doesn't make you not a part of the art community. It's simply a fun challenge, and you can choose to do it or not. And yeah, I think that's about all that I have to say. So I'm really curious what you all think about Inktober, especially if you're a comic artist. Do you participate? And do you find it challenging? Do you change it up a little bit to find a format of Inktober that works a little bit more for your type of content? Really curious to know what you all think in the comments. And as usual, I will see you next time. If you haven't read Chapter 6 of Olde Treehouse, the link is in the description. Check it out. I really want to know what you all think about it as well. And until next time, I'll see you later. Bye.